Hello, Los Altos residents. I'm Freddie Wheeler, and this is an interview with Pete Dailey, who's a candidate for Los Altos City Council. Hello, Pete.
Hi, Freddie.
Great. Shall we get started?
Sure.
Okay. The first question is about housing. Housing laws such as SB 35, SB 330, SB 9, and AB 2097 have significantly reduced the power of local governments to control housing density, building height, parking requirements, and other parameters. In addition, the state through HCD, the Housing and Community Development Department, and ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, dictate to cities the amount of new housing units that must be built in 8-year cycles, the RHNA requirement, and HCD now has a mandate to enforce compliance with RHNA requirements, including by levying significant fines. So the question is, do you support Sacramento's actions that take local zoning control away from city governments? And however you answer, why?
Well, Freddie, first let me say thank you very much for inviting me to the interview and for giving me the opportunity to speak to the many Los Altos residents who may end up watching this. I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you very much. But I have to say, I feel like this first question is a little bit of a loaded question, at least in regard to how it's framed, which to me sort of comes across as overly biased. I support following the law. Fortunately, state laws have us negotiating over how many and what type of windows to put in our first all affordable development at Distal. Rather than arguing over whether to build affordable housing at all, the debate has moved to, you know, some of the finer details of what the housing will look like. And so in that regard, I am supportive in general of the state laws.
Okay, thank you, Pete. The second question relates to city finances. So all of the candidates appear to prioritize city finances and emphasize fiscal responsibility. What do you think are the key financial decisions that council should tackle? And how would you prioritize spending city funds to address them?
That's a great question. And of course, the candidates all say that we support fiscal responsibility, as we should. Within that, the devil is sort of in the details. I believe we have an opportunity to pursue housing in a way that will generate increased revenue for our city. For example, the most recent project approved by council, 355 First Street, I think it is going to add 50 units of housing to our inventory, some of those units below market, and it's going to generate $2.4 million in park and lieu fees. So not all key financial decisions are about how to spend limited resources. I support some decisions that will increase our revenues without raising taxes. And I think we can do that with an intentional and thoughtful housing policy.
Okay. Could you, though, answer the question how would you prioritize spending city funds?
Okay, well, 50% of our budget is allocated toward public safety, and that is sacrosanct, in my opinion. 7 million of that goes to the county to support the fire department. Most of the rest of it goes to our police department. And, you know, we have 30 sworn officers, 6 of whom right now are unfortunately unable to report for work, either because of injuries or various reasons. So I support the continued emphasis on public safety within our budget, and I certainly wouldn't be cutting there if we find ourselves, you know, dealing with scarce resources. So that has to remain a priority. But, you know, our streets are also a priority, as are, you know, our parks. The playground equipment in all of our parks is beyond its useful life. So those would be my priorities. And I think that we may have another question later that touches on some of those, and I'll probably come back to them as well.
Thank you, Pete. Our city-owned buildings and infrastructure are in need, and some of them in desperate need of renovation and maintenance. What are your priorities for spending city money on city buildings and facilities? And will you support using city money and city land to fund the proposed new downtown theater? And if yes, how much money?
Okay, so here we go. This question, in some ways, allows us to continue to talk about some of the things that were raised in the last question. My first priority is our roads. Fortunately, we have diverse funding sources, including VTA money, gas taxes, state and county funding, and our general fund. My second priority are our parks. All the play structures in every one of our parks, as I just mentioned, have outlived their useful lives and need to be replaced. Fortunately, for this spending area, we also have a good source of revenue. We have ample park in lieu funds, and we need to spend them to upgrade those facilities. The third area is going to be our police station. And you might ask, why is that number 3 and not number 1? You know, I might say that all 3 of these are sort of 1A, 1B, and 1C. They're all top priorities. But the first 2, the roads and our park play structures and so forth, directly impact immediately the safety of our residents. And in particular, the play equipment in the park is bears on the safety of our children, and we need to do everything we can to protect their safety. The police station itself is going to be a harder one to fund, a more difficult funding exercise. And so I support a bond to fund our police station, and bonds aren't easy to pass. We've had some success with educational bonds in the past, but we've also seen a number of bond initiatives fail. And my hope is that we can get all of the constituencies in our community to work together as a team to get the police station funded, because regardless of where we are on other policy issues, it should be something that we can agree on. We may not agree on how to fund it. We may not agree on whether or not a bond is the appropriate way to do so, but that's going to be my area of effort going forward, is to rally support for that approach to funding the police station. Lastly, to answer the question about the theater, first, in the spirit of full disclosure, I'm on the theater working group. And so I've been a supporter of the theater from the beginning. And in fact, I'm on the finance subcommittee. So I don't know how much money it's going to cost to build the theater. I think it's a little bit of a mischaracterization to call it a proposed theater at this point, because we don't have a proposal. We're still in the feasibility study phase. And it's possible that the result of the feasibility study will say that it's just not feasible. Fortunately, I don't think that's going to be the outcome. We're far enough along into the feasibility study, and we've had some interim meetings and things like that, that it does look promising. But I support the concept, at least, of using public land, a parking plaza, for the theater with a number of provisos. First of all, parking is at a premium in our city, and there are many people who feel that we don't have enough parking. Whether or not you agree with that or I agree with that, I still fully believe that we have to cultivate and protect the parking that we do have. And so I would only support using a parking plaza for the theater if, when the theater proposal is developed, it protects or it provides for at least as much parking as what the parking plaza provides for. Now, that may mean that the theater is going to be more expensive because we have to have subterranean parking or what have you. But I think it will be critical to maintain the parking that we give up by virtue of giving up that parking plaza. I also don't know how much city money it's going to cost, because I don't yet know how much the theater is going to cost. Construction has been going up in cost for quite a while. We know that from our experience with the community center. It ended up being at the top end of the range that we were given to begin with. And so it's possible that we experience the same thing with the theater. On the other hand, it's also possible that we may see some costs go down. I've been talking to a number of property owners in Los Altos, and we all know the cost of money is getting more expensive. Interest rates are rising because we have a concern for inflation. And I think that it's possible that the broader economy may change and move in a sort of slower growth or even recessionary trend over the course of the next couple of years, just based on what we can expect from what happens when interest rates rise. So I'm reticent right now to say how much money is appropriate. The other thing I don't know is how much money the city's going to have. So it's definitely not appropriate for the city to allocate funds when it can't, if it can't pay for the core priorities that I already indicated were important, like our police station, our roads, and our parks.
Okay, thank you, Pete. What is your assessment of the current city communication efforts, and how will you improve them so that residents are aware of significant matters before council that directly affect them? And if communication efforts are improved, more residents might be motivated to provide council with their views. And if so, how will you balance resident input and feedback with your view of what residents want?
So I think Los Altos does a good job of engaging residents, and I don't think that we suffer from a deficit of resident input.
Okay. The final question, Pete, is what do you think are the city's two biggest challenges, and what will you do to meet them?
I think our two biggest challenges are the housing crisis and climate change. And to meet the challenge of the housing crisis, I support higher density proximate to our downtown triangle and other commercial neighborhoods. I do not support major changes to our single family residential neighborhoods. I do not support zoning changes in those neighborhoods. To meet the challenge of climate change, I support reach codes. Reach, but don't overreach. I support electrification of new construction and 50% remodels, but I do not support mandating electrification when existing gas appliances break and need to be replaced, nor do I support electrification requirements for the sale of a home. I think there are benefits to us staying one step ahead of the state building codes, but not 10 steps. And a perfect example is I was speaking with a resident not long ago who's putting in a swimming pool, and they want to put in a heat pump heater for their swimming pool rather than a gas heater for their swimming pool, because that comports with their values, and that also to them seems to be a way of future-proofing the investment that they're making in their swimming pool. But unfortunately, after speaking with 3 different pool contractors in our community, no pool contractor was willing or had the expertise to install a heat pump as a swimming pool heater. At some point, that's going to be required by state law. And when it's required by state law, we would be in better position if we had been one small step ahead of those state laws, and our local contractors and vendors, builders, tradespeople rather, we're already up to speed on that particular technology, those products, and you know, could install a heat pump, unlike in the current situation where there's been no incentive to develop that expertise or that product capability within our market. So I think that reach codes, if they're handled in a judicious manner, can actually be an economic benefit to our community, in addition to the public health benefits and the benefits that will accrue to reducing our carbon footprint.
Okay, well, Pete, thank you very, very much. We really appreciate you taking the time to provide your views on these issues, which we believe are important to all the residents of Los Altos, and to help give them more information so they can make an informed decision when they vote in November. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Freddie. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.